Hi, welcome back to the channel. If you've been following along with my Credibility Gap series of videos, we have finally made it to the fourth and final credibility leak that I'm talking about in the series. And I've saved this one for last deliberately, not because it's the least or most important, but it's the one that might actually be the one people will feel most strongly, because it's the hardest one to name, really. I mean, clarity, proof, and path are all fairly tactile and concrete. You can audit them easily, but presence is something different. And it's the leak that can show up more as a feeling, and those can be harder to diagnose. So I'm going to do my best in this video to make it a little bit more concrete and something that you can take action on if you find that this may be an area that's causing you some credibility issues with your website. But before I go into that, if we haven't met yet, I'm Meg. I'm the founder of Purpose and Pixel, and I help established women entrepreneurs close the gap between their real-world expertise and how they show up online. So what is presence? Well, presence is everything. It is your design, your visual strategy and layout, your copy, all of those things working together, or not, to shape the first impression that your website makes, that first impression that it makes about you and your business. So it's never going to be any one of those things in isolation. We're talking about the overall effect. It's what someone feels the moment they land on your site, before they've read a single word, before they've clicked on anything, before they've even made any conscious decision about whether or not you're the right fit for them. That's the feeling. That's the presence that your website and you are presenting. And it's either going to match the level you're operating at and who you are and who you serve right now, or it won't. And presence isn't one element that you can point to and fix in isolation, because it is the sum of everything. Your design, the copy, the imagery, the layout, the color, the typography, everything working together to tell a coherent story about who you are and what you do. When those elements are aligned and working together, the effect is almost invisible. But when they're not, people will feel it immediately, even if they can't explain exactly why or pinpoint a specific thing. Something is just not going to feel right to them. And that feeling, that subtle sense of a mismatch, of a misalignment, can do real damage to your credibility. And it doesn't matter if somebody can actually articulate that. So how can a credibility leak regarding presence, show up? And as you might not be surprised, it's not going to be just one thing. But I'll start by laying out some of the most common things that I think can cause this problem. And the first is an outdated design or dated design. Your fonts, your color palettes, your layout styles, the visual aesthetics, they do kind of all have a shelf life. I mean, yes, there are some classics that stand the test of time, but everything does seem to kind of have an expiration. So something that looked polished and professional 5 or 6 years ago can read as neglected today. And that's not because it was ever bad or even that it's bad now. It's just that its design has a context. And if that context shifts and your site was built in a different chapter of your business and it hasn't been touched since, well, then it's probably carrying that timestamp in ways you've stopped noticing because you've really been looking at it for too long. I mean, there are also some trends that can obviously get dated, and some things also come back in fashion. There's a look of retro websites and people wanting to bring some of that back again. But, if your website's screaming, it still looks like 2005 or older, it's probably not doing the work you need it to do. Next is something we'll call visual noise. And this is where there's too much competing for attention visually. Too many different colors or too many different font styles, too many graphical elements, just too much going on each page. That type of visual noise, it doesn't just make your site harder to read, but it communicates something about the business behind it. It can come across as disorganized or trying too hard or just plain unclear. And a cluttered, unclear site really signals a calm and capable expert behind it. The third is copy that doesn't sound like you anymore. And this one can really sneak up on us because if you wrote your website copy at a particular point in your business in a particular voice with a particular client in mind, but your business is now evolved and your positioning has sharpened, maybe your ideal client has shifted, but that copy is still back where you were a few years ago, speaking to who you were then and who you served then, well, then those words on your website don't match who you are now. And that disconnect can cause a leak in presence, even if the writing and the copy is good and technically well done. The fourth thing I want to bring up is inconsistency. And by this, I mean inconsistency across your pages. So your home page is designed or feels one way, and your about page now feels slightly different. And then your services page feels like it was built by somebody else entirely. You've added a blog or a podcast that graphics and the elements don't match the rest of your website. Those can all be signs of a disconnect. And this is not uncommon. This often happens with sites and businesses that have grown organically over time. And those sections or services or things have been added on at different times, but they haven't been following a unifying visual logic that hold it all together. And visitors will pick up on that inconsistency, even if they can't name it. It just creates a low-level sense of unreliability that can be hard for them to shake. And fifth, and this is one I'm going to spend a little time on, is your photography, your imagery. And if that doesn't match where you are in your business now, it's a visual thing. Your images are not just decoration. They are a form of communication, and they're there to communicate something about you and your business, whether you've been intentional about it or not. So something as simple as an outdated headshot says something about you, or stock photos that look like every other stock photo in your industry, that says something about you. Or photos that you took with your phone that you put up there just to be a placeholder and they were never meant to carry the amount of weight that they are on a page, that says something. And none of these things are saying what you want them to say, which is, this is a serious, established professional who operates at a high level and whose work I can trust. When your imagery is misaligned with where you actually are in your business, it creates a doubt that your copy then has to work to try and overcome. And it's not just about the quality of the images themselves, while that's extremely important, where they appear on your pages within your site, how they're integrated into the design and layout, whether they're placed with intention or dropped in as an afterthought, whether their style is cohesive throughout the website. All of that matters. A strong, high-quality image used poorly is still a missed opportunity. So thoughtful image curation and placement is part of the design work. It's not separate from it. Images and the layout around them should be working together to guide the attention and reinforce trust in your customers. They're not just there to fill space. Now, the good news is that this is one of the more solvable presence problems, and it doesn't necessarily require as much as you might think it does to fix it. But I'll be talking about that more very soon. But why is this a credibility issue? And I want to speak to that for a moment because you might be listening to this thinking, well, I'm hearing what you're saying, but isn't this all just an aesthetics problem? I mean, is this about personal taste? And it's not. And here's why. Think about it. When you meet someone in person for the first time, maybe at a networking event or a conference, client meeting, just going about your day in the supermarket or walking down the street in your town, you form an impression of them instantly, right? The way they carry themselves, the way they're dressed, the confidence in how they speak to you, the firmness of their handshake. No, you're not consciously auditing all of those signals, but you are reading them, And they do influence whether you trust that person before they've said anything substantive. You're making an unconscious judgment about whether or not what you see and what you're expecting from them are in alignment. And your website is doing the same job for you. It's that first handshake. It's that whole appearance that you present. It's the presence that whether that handshake says, this is someone who operates at the level I need, or if they're left feeling uncertain. Now, for a lot of established women entrepreneurs who've been successful and have a lot of strong results behind them, this can land in a very particular way. You have that experience. You have the results. You have the expertise. You've earned it. But if your website presence is 5 years behind where you actually are, your potential clients are meeting a version of you and your business that no longer exists. And they're making decisions based on that version, not the current version, not the version that you want them to be working with. So we need to close that gap between who you are now, where your business is now, and how your site presents them. That's the whole point. It's not about vanity. It's about accuracy. Now, I mentioned, obviously, that imagery is one of the more solvable presence problems, and I meant it. Now, in the coming weeks, I am going to be getting much more into the visual side of this specifically, and I'll be talking about an approach that I take to address this problem that might generally surprise you. So I hope you'll keep an eye out for that. Now, if you've been following through this series, or even if this is the first video you've seen, and you find yourself kind of nodding along and thinking, yeah, this sounds like I might have some of these issues with my site, well, the next step is easy. And it isn't to try and fix everything at once. It's actually to figure out which area is costing you the most in regards to your credibility right now and start there. And that's why I created the credibility gap type quiz. It's built exactly for this. It's 11 quick questions, takes 2 minutes, and it will give you a clearer picture of what your credibility type is and where you need to focus on your website so that you spend your time addressing the issues that matter and not trying to fix all the ones that don't. So the link is down in the description. I hope you'll check it out, and I will see you in the next video.